Hi there, come on in, or should I say come on out, but I don't know who would want to, certainly not ice fishermen. This is a mess what Mother Nature has done this past week with this warm spell. But we did find some good ice up on Lakes Cadillac and Mitchell this past weekend. We're going to bring you a report on the state's first ice fishing championship. We're also going to take this opportunity to take you to Quebec, a place that has a lot of this cold, wet, sloppy weather, but it's where we were caribou hunting this past fall. Very successful, had some great adventures, and brought back some terrific meat for our wild game dinner. All this coming your way, so stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors.
The Emmy Award-winning Michigan Outdoors is brought to you in part by DOC, home of the DOC Super Lens, a virtually unbreakable lightweight polycarbonate lens sold only at DOC, keeping the outdoors in focus.
Here we go. You got one? Got another one.
I'll be darned. Look at
this. A magic bait.
Ice fishing might not look like it takes a lot of skill, but believe me, if you've tried it, you know it takes as much knowledge to locate and catch fish through the ice as anywhere.
Oh, this is another nice one.
Oh boy, it's really zipping around there. I can see that.
Oh, this is a crappie. Whoa, look at that.
Terry Place pulled this crappie through the ice at Lake Mitchell, the sister to Lake Cadillac, two lakes that are known for their abundance of pike, walleye, and panfish. The Cadillac Middle School gymnasium last Sunday was where fish were measured for the big contest.
Bluegill 5.
This was the first state ice fishing championship, a new event with a novel scoring system. Fish of each species were measured, and the total length of a catch of one species figured into points. A limit of average-sized bluegills, for example, could equal the point value of a limit of average-sized pike. This tournament was sponsored by Cadillac's Big Oak Outfitters, a sporting goods store that put up the money. $500 for first prize, partly covered by the entry fees. The semifinals were Saturday afternoon, and the finals with 10 anglers were held on Sunday morning.
Overall winner, Kim Mitchell, 284 points. New state ice fishing champion for Lakes Cadillac and Mitchell. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good fishing.
The crowd was relatively small, but this event was significant. Organizer Craig Scoff, known for his European fishing techniques, plans a bigger one next year.
Well, it went really well. We're real happy with our first turnout. We came up with this idea about 4 or 5 months ago to start an actual state championship. Up until this time, we'd never really heard of an actual state championship, so we'd find out who is the best in the state.
Weather kind of kiboshed some of the downstate people from coming up, though.
Well, right away on Thursday and Friday, it was kind of bad. But come Saturday morning, it was just gorgeous out here. The guys that came were happy they did. They were also happy about the bad storm because they figured less guys, I got a better chance of winning the money. So everybody had a good time. Everybody did.
They fished on both lakes, Cadillac and Mitchell, right?
Yep, both lakes. With some guys were asking about Mud Lake, and it's part of it, but it's not part of the actual Lake Mitchell.
The 10 finalists fished, 8 of them fished on Mitchell, 2 of them on Cadillac. Does that mean that Mitchell's 5 times better than Cadillac, or what?
No, people weren't after perch. Perch and pike are real good in Cadillac, but in Mitchell, panfish reign supreme, so most of the guys that fished are real good pan fishermen. But it did help in this tournament to have a pike, because there were so many panfish limits. If you didn't have a pike or a walleye, it was hard to compete with the top guys.
As Craig expected, there were local anglers fishing the lakes that weekend who didn't enter, but might have won. You caught this on a tip-up?
Yeah, on a sucker minnow, about a 6-inch sucker minnow.
This is your tip-up?
Yeah, it's one of them. I caught it on an underwater tip-up, though.
Okay, well, this is obviously a homemade design, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's a box tip-up. They work really nice. The reel spin on them real good.
Scott Grams from Cadillac is obviously a skilled fisherman, but he didn't enter the ice fishing championship. Too bad, Scott. You might have been the winner. One thing about our Outdoors Club Trophy Awards program is it's free, you don't have to enter in advance, and everybody's a winner if you make the minimum qualifications. So make sure that if you get a big fish or a big deer, a big trophy, make sure you get one of these forms, fill it out, send it in, and send in a good picture, because that's how these folks ended up in our trophy book. This northern pike falls short of our Moosehead Fishing Awards minimum of 18 pounds. It's 17 pounds, but it makes the 40-inch minimum. It's 41 inches. John McGuire from Clare caught it in Shamrock Lake on a tip-up. Notice how northern pike have basically dark bodies with white spots. That's how you can tell that this is a muskie. It has dark markings on what looks like a light background. Weighing almost 23 pounds, this 48-inch northern muskie was caught trolling the Tequamanon River with live bait by Don Longstreet from McBain. You can really see the vertical markings on this northern muskie, a 23.5-pounder, 45 inches long, taken by Jeff Ply from Kalamazoo, casting a Rebel in Van Buren County's Wolf Lake. Now this 46-incher weighed 25 pounds even. It came from Long Lake up in the Grand Traverse area. Terry Turner from Grawn was casting a Bango lure. Now this muskie doesn't have vertical bar-like markings, it has dark spots. Sort of the reverse of a northern pike with its white spots. Now this variety is called a Great Lakes muskie, also found in big lakes. This one from Mullet Lake in Sheboygan County. Ron Retchline from the Sioux caught it trolling in Erie Deary. It was 44 inches long, weighed nearly 25 pounds. Now this 25-pounder, also 44 inches long, came from Lake St. Clair. Roger Doyle from Utica caught it trolling a Believer. A quarter-inch short of 50 inches, this 31-pounder also came from Lake St. Clair, also on a Believer. That's the Lake St. Clair standard muskie lure. Jason Seaman from Harrison Township is the lucky angler. Richard Ron from Greenbush says he hunts from October 1st to December 31st, passes up a lot of small deer. Here are 2 bucks he got with a rifle, both 9 points, but the one had an 18 and an 1/8 inch spread and made the Williams Gun Sight Hunting Award minimum of 18 inches. Richard hunts public land. These 2 came from some federal forest land on the east side of the northern lower, land that is open to everybody. George Northrup from Davison got a 10-point with an 18.5 inch spread. Nice deer, opening day of 89 in Genesee County. From Montcalm County, Merrill Johnson from Edmore took this 11-point on the 3rd day of the season, just before dark. And holding his 12-point rack is Mike Layfield from Shepherd. It had a 19 and 3/8 inch spread, opening day just before lunch in Isabella County. His 19-pound wild turkey had a 10 and 1/8 inch beard. Louis Moret had a story to tell, which we taped last year at our Hunting Awards banquet.
My brother and me, we were first-time turkey hunting and didn't exactly know what we were doing. Well, my brother might have, but I didn't. And we had one of those decoys, and it was still dark out. And the first thing we did was try to be quiet and got inside there, and we put the stake in the ground, and then when we put the decoy in, it made a squeak. And we had like 3 or 4 times going just with the squeak the first time out.
No kidding.
And they were all going crazy. I said, well, this is going to be easy. And they stayed there and they stayed there and they stayed there till finally later on in the afternoon, we called one up, and he didn't come in either, and kind of snuck up on him, caught him in a juniper bush. He stuck his head up and he seen me, and then he tried to fly away, and I shot him on the wing.
No kidding. Well, that's some story there with the squeaking of the turkey decoy called it in, which is a lesson about turkey calling, which I think you can figure out. Well, skill at turkey calling isn't always necessary, but it will help if you don't have a squeaky decoy. For sharing this story about his gobbler, we'll make Louis Moret from Cement City our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Turkey Hunter of the Week. The Flint River Valley Steelheaders have their annual boat and fishing show this weekend at the IMA Sports Arena in Flint, a great show to get psyched up for fishing season. The MSU Museum is having a Turtle Day on Saturday, a special program on Michigan turtles, including the popular snapper. The Black Lake Sturgeon Shivaree is this weekend at Onaway State Park, a family festival during the 1-month sturgeon spearing season on Black, Mullet, and Burt Lakes. There's a gun show at the Radisson in Plymouth this weekend, a sled dog race at the Luce County Fairgrounds in Newberry, an MTA trap shoot Sunday at the Linden Sportsman's Club, and a 3D archery shoot at the Looking Glass River Sportsman's Club in Langsburg. Monday evening, there's a DU banquet at Duffy's Waterfront Inn in Union Lake, and if you don't have tickets yet for the Moosehead Fishing Awards or Williams Gunsight Hunting Awards banquets this weekend in Lansing, you're too late. Ticket sales are cut off for both unless you're a latecomer who wants to join the party of an award winner. If you'd like to talk with the outfitters who we've hunted and fished with in Alaska, Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec, come to the Lansing Civic Center Saturday at 1 p.m. It's not a sports show, there's no entry fee, but you can talk to the folks who have hosted our North American adventures. Charter Captains Emil Dean and Steve Pazlaski will also be there to talk about Great Lakes fishing. That's Meet the Outfitters this Saturday at the Lansing Civic Center. Sunshine! Wow, that's something you don't see all that often near Ungava Bay in northern Quebec. And when you do, it rarely lasts more than an hour. This was our second hunt at the Punic Camp out of Fort Chimo, a town that itself is in a remote region of North America. This hunting camp is even more remote, one of 18 locations that Safari Nordique uses for hunters who come to the northern tundra to take 2 caribou. That's the limit in Quebec. The herd has been growing over the past few years, and the government of Quebec wants to keep it under control. Hunting is a logical method. The blue sky of 20 minutes ago is starting to load up with clouds, and the caribou are starting to move.
It's kind of exciting.
They strolled 40 yards from our blind. If they were white-tailed deer, they would have smelled us.
Well, the wind is blowing directly towards them, but I don't think they can smell us. It's always been my theory, but I could be wrong.
Caribou don't use their noses. They use their eyes for survival.
Can you see them? They may cut right back across here. I wonder if he's going to come here or stick near the water. Oh, look at that. If this was a big bull, I'll just scope her just for kicks. Oh, boy, would that be a... What a shot that would be.
Unlike white-tailed deer, the big males aren't reclusive. They travel in groups and follow the same trails as the other caribou. So a big bull could very well come through. Less than an hour from leaving camp, the sun was pinched behind encroaching clouds, squeezing snow all over the tundra. No need to worry. The sun would be back, probably soon. Just as quickly as the weather changes, caribou appear, this time a good-sized herd with a few bulls that were almost big enough.
Boy, that's very tempting. Very tempting.
Unlike white-tailed deer, caribou move continually. They do bed down, but when they're not bedded, they're walking. Even when they browse the lichen, they move.
Quite a distance off.
There were a couple of decent bulls in this group, but I wasn't confident I could make a clean shot.
I just can't hold the crosshairs quite steady enough on that bull at that distance.
I think they may be coming around.
Yeah, either that or they're going to swim.
You never know where these caribou are going, but they seem to. Nothing is behind them, pushing them, but they're usually deliberate and almost hasty as they move.
But nothing real big. God, if I had a rock or something to rest this gun against. Just not confident with this.
This happens a lot when you're caribou hunting. You scope a group of animals, but for one reason or another, decide to pass them up. Once again, it's snowing. Such a surprise. This is why waterproof boots are necessary in the tundra. If it was cold, I'd wear my felt packs. If it was fairly warm, I'd wear leather boots that I greased with mink oil or snow seal. I carried my gear in a bucket, which I sat on, and kept my spare clothing dry. Here we are, the home for the week, our tent that repelled a lot of rain and heard lots of stories. We had quite a cosmopolitan group in our little home. Jerry and his son from Muskegon, Dwight and John from Ohio, all of them Midwestern deer hunters. Then from Reno, Nevada, Clell and Damon had the other two bunks. Lots of jokes, lots of stories, lots of dreaming about the caribou we'd see the next day. I'm walking through a bog right here where both John Ford and I got our first bulls on the second day of the hunt. We came back to this spot the next 3 days, but never had any really big ones come within range. Oh, there was one that I saw I would have taken, but it was moving too fast.
Boy, look at the size of that. There's 3 good bulls. Man, that middle one there, look at the way those, oh God, those arch right back over the top of the shovels. Ooh, that's a nice one. And there's one following up the rear. No, it's a lot smaller. It has darker antlers. Boy, I sure like that light antlered one. I can't tell what the shovels are like, but that's a big bruiser.
See how they trot? That's how they move from one spot to another, unlike white-tailed deer that walk slowly, stop, pause, scent the wind. These caribou prefer the open tundra. They stay in herds, keep moving, and use their eyes to watch for wolves. That's the predator that stalks them 365 days a year.
Yeah, that's a... If there's any decent bulls. Okay, I see a... Just think I should take one?
Yep.
On the last afternoon of our 5-day hunt, it's time to take one.
God, they're screened.
I hadn't been running. My respiration increased because I was anxious, excited, maybe a little nervous.
There's a little calf. That's a little bull there. Boy, they're not very big.
Just wait. Let them come through.
They're not very big.
I'm sorry, folks. I'm a meat hunter, and these weren't big enough.
I don't know, those bulls just don't look that big. They're just very small bulls. Here we are, the last day. I don't know how many more hours we can let pass, and I stay picky like this, but I mean, for the wild game dinner, I want some meat, and those just weren't big enough.
That's how I make my decisions when I hunt. I gambled that we'd see more caribou in the few hours we had left, and an hour later, we did. You can't see the bull that I'm looking at.
Boy, I don't know.
I had a few seconds to make up my mind, and I did. The bull I took went down to the left of where John Ford could see with the camera. The other caribou walked right on by my bull that was soon to be boned out and on its way to our annual April wild game dinner. Cared for properly, wild game isn't wild at all. In fact, we'll have hundreds of guests this year that say they can't believe it. How can this be wild game? We bring home lots of good meat from our hunting trips. John Ford captures many golden moments on videotape. We relive our adventures over and over again, and when I see this, I'm ready to go back again. Boy, that was one big bull, wasn't it? Hunting is different from many other outdoor activities in that it's deadly serious. I mean, hunters don't take lightly the fact that they kill game. And I grew up with the attitude, well, actually it's more of a conviction, that I have a responsibility as a hunter to eat what I shoot, or in the case of fishing, to eat what I keep. And this is one of the tenets of the Outdoors Club. I ran a survey in the November-December issue of the Outdoor Digest magazine about hunting and how club members feel about a mandatory consumption law. Now, 94% said they agree. A hunter has an obligation to eat or in some way utilize what he shoots. 84% said they restrict their hunting to species they like to eat. Now, some hunters enjoy duck hunting, for example, but don't like to eat duck, but they make sure the ducks go to somebody who does like to eat them. Regarding a mandatory consumption law, 64% would like to see one instituted, but 36% evidently didn't think wild game meat utilization should be forced by law. Now, they may change their mind, though, when they learn about the abuses on crop damage permits that we uncovered with our deer herd. Conservation officers are having fits about landowners who were shooting deer under these permits and letting them lie in the fields. Some landowners who claim crop damage have reportedly shot hundreds of deer and not picked them up. Michigan game law doesn't require that you pick up game that you shoot other than waterfowl, and I think that's wrong. That's why the Outdoors Club is pushing for what's called a wanton waste law. Make it illegal to shoot game and not try to retrieve it or to waste game meat. I don't think this is an unreasonable demand by the state to protect its game. Speaking of the state and of the DNR, if you've been following this controversy about splitting the DNR, if you're interested in seeing a Department of Conservation again, as well as a Department of the Environment, you're going to want to watch next week's show. I'm going to introduce you to the fellow who has been gathering information for me on DNR budgets. He's the one who's going to operate our club's SOS Bureau, be the director. He'll bring us up to date on the latest Natural Resources Commission meeting. He'll tell us how sportsmen's license money is being spent as best he can figure out, what the proposals are to split or modify the DNR, and how you as a sportsman can have an impact in the future on how the DNR spends our money. That's next week, so don't miss it. In the meantime, let's move to something a little less controversial, one of Kathy Beitler's Wild Game Classics. Fish and Cheese Puffs by Bobby Lyons from Prudenville was a winner in our Fish and Wild Game Cooking Contest. Kathy Beitler, it happens to be, I think, my favorite appetizer.
Oh, it's an excellent appetizer. It's got quite a few ingredients in it, but they all go together very well. You've got, of course, your fish, and this is perch, and you could use leftover fish for this.
It's cooked.
It's cooked first, and then you just flake it very, very fine. Walleye would be perfect for it.
Such a delicate flavor to that fish.
Absolutely. And you're going to go ahead and add a whole package of cheese. You could grate it yourself if you want to, and a whole stick of butter. And everybody kind of wonders about that, but it's basically to hold everything together.
Quite rich recipe.
It is. And then a little bit of mayonnaise, of course, for the very same reason, to hold it together and give it a little bit different taste. And garlic powder rather than salt.
Whoa, people are going to think that the taste of the fish is going to be gone.
Oh, no way. And then you go ahead and mix that very, very well. And put it on your English muffins. And then just go ahead and cut those into quarters or into half if you want a little bit bigger portions.
Sure doesn't look like much there, does it?
No, it doesn't. Not once they're cut. And then sprinkle it with paprika and then just pop them in the oven until the cheese melts.
Well, I happen to know it's great, but will Bob Garner be able to taste the delicate perch through all these ingredients?
Well, I can taste the perch in here. This isn't a recipe though that is designed to enhance the flavor of the perch. This is almost a frivolous, fun recipe that you really can enjoy the ingredients in it with the perch and eat it with the hot sauce. It's good stuff.
The hot sauce.
I
love the hot
Why
sauce.
don't you have a little appetizer with that hot sauce?
This is festive food. You know,
It
I
is.
mean, it looks good, it tastes good, it's real festive food.
Tastes like crab to me.
It does?
With the ingredients.
You know, it's hard to think back on the recipe contest, but right now it seems like this should have been first place in the appetizer category. Oh, man, is this good.
It's first place right now.
What's this, Bob? What do you think of that?
Let's not split them. I'll flip you for the rest of me.
Oops. For the first time ever, this week's recipe was inadvertently left out of the Outdoor Digest, but we'll send it to you if you ask for Fish and Cheese Puffs by name. You'll get the other recipes and an article on game cookery. It's in the January-February issue of the Outdoor Digest magazine, packed with articles. Relive those ice fishing tales, a fishing trip where you can catch 40-pound king salmon, see how white-tailed deer react to decoys, the baking soda scam and controversies broiling in the Michigan DNR, all the January-February recipes, an entry form for Williams Gun Sight Hunting or our Moosehead Fishing Awards with a full-color trophy book. For a sample copy and information on joining the Outdoors Club, write to me at Box 1000, Bath, Michigan 48808. Ask for the January-February Outdoor Digest. Now is the time for our guide report. We usually call up people and find out how the fishing is. I bring you the ultimate guide in the outdoors, Mother Nature. Right here, she has melted the ice throughout the southern part of the state. It's dangerous, it's sloppy. The snowmobile trails, the cross-country ski trails, they're a mess. Now, possibly in the Upper Peninsula, by this weekend, it'll be firm enough and safe enough and not so sloppy that you can get out there and maybe have some success. I know the fishing is probably okay through this ice if you can get there. But what to recommend? I don't know. Be safe above all. Get outdoors if you can. If the weather takes a turn for the better, it's usually a great place to be. See you next week. I'm walking through a bog right here where both John Ford and I got our first bulls on the second day of the hunt. We came back to this spot the next 3 days, but never had any really big ones come within range. Oh, there was one that I saw I would have taken, but it was moving too fast. Next week on Michigan Outdoors, we're going to answer some questions. One of the easy ones is, can you mix game meat? Can you use moose and elk and caribou and venison recipes? Of course, we're going to use caribou in a white-tailed Diablo recipe that's excellent. We're also going to answer some tough questions about the DNR, introduce you to the new fellow who's going to be in charge of the SOS Bureau, come up with some real answers for sportsmen. That's next week, right here on Public TV.
I can't tell what the shovels are like, but that's a big bruiser.